very much for taking the time to join us today. My name is Lloyd Farnsworth. I'm the Director of Sales for DIS, and I'm joined by John Andersen, industry expert. And we wanted, as you obviously saw in the invite, to have a time to talk to everybody and actually get some of your input as well regarding what is the dealership, successful dealership, going to look like 5 years from now. And we've got a number of different topics to try and highlight. And certainly we'll make this recording available to anybody that wants to pass it on down the road. But also want to mention that if you have any input at all, please put your hand up and we can unmute mics, but we'll certainly take comments and chats and respond to all questions from everybody as they come up. So again, thanks for your time. And John, I will turn it over to you to start on which one of our 4 topics you want to highlight first.
Okay, first of all, I want to tell you, just almost as if it was on cue, I told you at some point my dog would lose her mind, and this apparently is the time, just because I started. I think it was interesting when what you said about what a successful dealership is going to look like in 2030, because I think I would even open the Pandora's box a little further and say, what is any dealership going to look like in 2030? Because the success is going to be there if they manage to survive the next 5 years. Adapt over the next 5 years, and everybody keeps talking about this rate of change and the way things keep changing and where everybody's going. And I think the best way to do this is to actually take a step back and understand what that 5-year window looks like now compared to what that 5-year window looked like 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And it used to be you would make a 5-year plan. I think at best you can do right now is keep your fingers crossed and make a plan to be here in 5 years and then be constantly evolving as we go through that process. So, to give you an example, Lloyd, if we look back and say it was just 5 short years ago, what's changed over the last 5 years? And maybe it's just getting older that you get a different perspective of things, but 5 years is an eternity now. 5 years ago, we hadn't heard of a global pandemic. 5 years ago, we weren't being inundated with AI. 5 years ago, social media was something that kids used. It's fundamentally the market is changing so quickly that 5 years is really an eternity. So I think to best understand where we could be, believe me, if I could say and guarantee with any sense of certainty this is what a dealership's going to look like in 2030, I would have a whole fleet of them ready to go. But I think the answer is, forewarned is forearmed. So you have to start thinking about the things that could happen and the way it could happen. And probably for me, the easiest way to look at that is to go backwards in the crystal ball because it's hindsight's 2020. And I think you've heard me say it over and over again, Lloyd, over the last couple of years that you and I've been talking, that the guy with the most data wins. And it's a pretty easy thing to just roll off the tongue, but what does it really mean? And I think if we look at the last 5 years, the dealerships live in a transactional world. So everything is based on the number of transactions they put through. So if you want to judge a successful dealership today, and you ask a dealer principal, so tell me about your business, he'll say, well, I've got 9 locations and I do, $26.5 million per year, and I've got an EBITDA of this. I have revenues of that. I sell this much in equipment, this much in parts. This is what I have for absorption. It's all a data-based play, and everybody has been accumulating that data. So I think the first step in going forward 5 years from now is for people to stop and look at what I refer to as their aggregate farm. So in other words, and that's to pay respect to both sides of the house that I work on, both ag and construction, that you're dealing with a significant plot of land that is yours, that is filled with data and filled with literal tons and tons of data. The challenge up until now has been, how do I mine or farm that data? How do I get it out? And how do I make it meaningful? So I think that's really where people need to start when they talk about this plan for the next 5 years and what success is going to look like. Because we have been so transaction oriented as dealers, we need to go back and start really capitalizing on that data that we have. So I know it's one of your favorite subjects, and I know DIS has a strong foray into the analytics side of things. And I believe the analytics is a strong play to learn where you are. But I think where analytics gets really, really powerful is when you start talking about things like predictive analytics, and start talking about what are things going to look like moving forward. What can I, aside from being able to look at the transactions I have now and look at the bases I have now, how can I start to take that data and extrapolate some kind of a future plan? And
what I like to call that is analytics for action, because you have to take action on it.
Yeah, but I think the biggest challenge every dealer has is they don't know what action they need to take. Dealerships traditionally fly by the seat of their pants. They have a 1-year plan, a 2-year plan. The problem is plans now are measured in months, right, not years anymore. So, I think you have to come up with a generic description that says in order to survive until 2030 or to flourish in 2030, we have to retain our existing customer base. Great example. What is retaining your existing customer base going to look like, and what are you going to have to do to keep these customers? Because we're faced with a myriad of challenges going forward that we've never dealt with. Some we don't even know about right now. I know you and I have had this discussion before, specifically as it relates to parts. You've had a captive market as an equipment distributor. You've had a captive market for parts. In some cases, you even have protected territories. In some cases, your closest competition has been your neighboring dealer of the same brand, because you've had that much dominant market share. That world is changing right now. If the world is looking for a part, what do?
Go to Amazon.
Of course, and you can type in any number that you want in Amazon, and people say, well, that's not specific to our industry. And my answer would be, it may not be specific to your industry yet, but it's getting there, and it's coming very, very quickly. So I think, being data driven and knowing what your core competencies are, and knowing all of your numbers and who your customers are and what salesmen sell in what territories, and doing detailed analytics for action. For example, if I have a product support rep that lives in territory and he sells 20% more than a product support rep that doesn't live in territory, pretty easy decision to make, right? So when I'm hiring new product support reps, they should live in territory. You have the data to do that. And with today's analytics programs, you also have the facility to do that too. If we were to throw into that mix something as simple as AI, which we're hearing over and over again, AI will give you the ability to sort through that data and to refine that aggregate farm into something that'll give people actionable items. So I think that's the first piece.
Okay.
So if the second piece, and I think this is where it really takes off, is if you know who you're going to compete against and you know what you're going to compete against. And let's just take a step back and say 5 years from now, and I'll ask you, Lloyd, as an independent equipment distributor, pick your product line, or don't say one because you don't want to offend your audience. Who is going to be your biggest competition in terms of sales?
In terms of parts sales, or in terms of equipment sales? Like which way you want to go?
You can use either one. I'll go either direction.
Because I will say in parts sales, it's going to be independent providers or the OEM themselves, as the data is gathered, and some of the sales can go direct from OEM warehouse.
Well, again, so if you subscribe to the theory that the best predictor of future is past, let's take a look at an industry you and I both know about, a little bit about anyway, with your ADP background and my just being old. If we talk about the automotive industry, 5 years ago, maybe stretch it, 10 years ago, they started talking about Carvana. You'll buy cars over the internet. They'll be delivered to your house. You test drive it. If you don't like it, they'll take it back and deal with it accordingly. That has, at the time, I got to be honest with you, I poo-pooed the whole idea. Like, there is no way. I used to say to equipment dealers, nobody's going to pay, for a $150,000 combine online without ever actually seeing it and being in it and seeing it operate. Well, fast forward to today, and if you want to buy a Tesla, you're not dealing with an independent dealer anymore. You go to Tesla of Edmonton, London, Chicago, New York, wherever it is. You actually go to a company-owned store. In some cases, they may have some inventory for you to look at. And in fact, a lot of them just have hollow show cars for people to sit in. However, you place your order online and it gets delivered to that dealership for you to pick up. And it's a company-owned dealership. So I think you're right. I think one of the people that you will compete against will be the manufacturer. I also think you're going to compete against the unknown competitor. And by that, I mean it's going to be somebody who has an online presence, who has a virtual presence, who has crack salespeople that deal just like you and I do. For the sake of the people that are attending here, Lloyd and I have known each other for 15 years-ish?
Yes.
Okay. Was it longer or shorter? I don't want to tell a lie. Okay, so we'll go with 15 years-ish. Probably haven't seen each other in at least 5 years. And one of the reasons is that we can still have conversations like this that are, from my office and your office, are face-to-face conversations. So I think that changes your geography, and that changes the need for someone to physically be in that location and selling. So I think there's an unknown commodity that's going to exist. Now, how does this relate to business systems? How does this relate to DIS? Because all of the underlying and the underpinning foundation is still going to have to exist, right? We're still going to have to be able to account for everything. We're still going to have to order parts. We're still going to have to order equipment. We're still going to have to service things. But the front end is going to change. And I think it could change who your competitor is too. If you think of the large multi-store, in some cases multi-country, or people that own an entire country for a product line, it doesn't take much for somebody to set up an excellent EI-based customer experience. And when I say an EI-based, I'm talking not about AI now, I'm talking about emotional intelligence. Mm-hmm. Somebody who knows how to talk to the customer like the customer. Somebody who knows how to understand the problems they have. Somebody who knows how to solve those problems. So I think your competitor could be an unknown at this point. It could be somebody who has a dynamic understanding of the industry, who talks a great game, who understands the crop market that you're in, and he could literally be like you and I at home in a home office. And
well, we're already seeing that it could be in the service sector, where independent service people are doing effectively the Uber and attempting to say, you know what, we can service your equipment. You don't have to go to the dealership. And you and I have talked about it, the availability now of getting a technician in certain states through the application called Heave. Don't have to go to the dealership, get something serviced.
It's a great example of creativity solving a problem, right? So as long as I've been in this industry, the question is, where do we get our next generation of service technicians? Where are we going to find diesel techs? What are they going to do? How do we have to, what happened is now there is a group headed by Alex Kraft who came up with a very specific application called Heave. The idea behind it is now, and dealers don't like it when I talk about this, so my apologies to the audience. But what they're doing is enabling diesel technicians to become their own bosses. Similar to, like you said, Uber. They have their own trucks, they have their own parts manuals, they have their own service manuals. A lot of them have their own contacts, and they have all of their own education. And they basically service a geographic territory on their own. And it allows the dealership the opportunity to be able to do what they want to do. In terms of selling parts and selling equipment. But as an end user customer, if I can't get a technician today, I can go on Heave and find somebody that's local and go ahead and book them and have them show up and repair my equipment. So I think you need to be ultra aware of those kinds of opportunities that are gonna come up as people start talking about what things should look like in 2030.
Right. And I mean, I've talked about that in the last week. I mean, even the service side, and as we just pointed out, I mean, you can put a part number into Amazon, and you don't need to go to the dealership, and you can have it delivered to your door the same day in a lot of cases. And that's okay. That didn't exist 5 years ago for parts.
Yeah. So I think this is one of those chances where it would be good to use the people that are attending. And this is always my question. I think you and I are brilliant, but not the brightest people in the room. And I think the solution to that is to have more people in the room. And when we have, in this case, 20 or 30 attendees, 44 attendees right now, to come up with what's next, we look behind us. So I would say to anybody that's listening right now, in your mind, see if you can come up with something that 5 years ago wasn't a thing. And I can't think of a nicer way of saying it. I mean, it doesn't mean it didn't exist. It just wasn't something that that you needed to jump on. That in today is been a major market disruptor, and it's going to change, because when you start thinking about those, you start applying it to your own businesses at the same time. So, if some come up, jump in and tell me, but I'll tell you the first one that comes to mind for me. And to my Canadian friends, they will appreciate this, but it used to be on weekends, I would get up early on Saturday morning and I would head to our local home improvement store, oddly enough called Canadian Tire, because it handled everything outdoor, cars related, house related. And I would kind of walk through there and pick all the things that I needed for my project. It was a very peaceful Saturday morning. I enjoyed my being Canadian Tim Hortons coffee at the same time as I was walking through to get everything I needed. And then by the time I got home it was probably 10 or 11 o'clock, and got breakfast, and in the afternoon I could start going after my honey-do list, all the things that I needed to repair around the house or needed to be completed for fall or whatever happened. That world has changed so dramatically, not necessarily for the better for me, but now what happens is, instead of going to Canadian Tire to fix my problem, I go to Amazon. And during the course of at 10 o'clock at night, while we're sitting there watching the local news, and my wife will say, I'm tired of listening to the faucet drip, I'll get onto Amazon and buy new washers, or in some cases a new faucet. It's delivered by 10 o'clock the next morning. And I don't even have an excuse to wait till Saturday anymore. So I think that the real question is, what was it 5 years ago? And I'll throw it back to you to come up with one. What was it 5 years ago that wasn't necessarily a thing that is a thing today? And then we'll get to the critical part, which is, how does it look tomorrow? Do you have one?
My example that I can think of to complement what you said on Amazon is YouTube, because now, depending on what you're doing, and from I thought that I've got a couple different personal experiences of stuff that I wouldn't normally tackle. One to do with repairing a central air conditioner, and one to do with replacing a front lock set. And normally I would have called in experts to do both of those. Weirdly enough, I literally called up YouTube in the last 6 months, and then went into a parts list in both cases and was able to get the parts myself and not call in the expert to do either one of those. Because there were YouTube videos that were 12 minutes long that said, hey, by the way, it's not that tough. Do this, 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 and away you go. It worked.
So let's talk about that for a second, because that's a perfect example of 5 years ago I would have had to seek out a dealer to fix something, whatever it is. If we fast forward to today, and I think everybody on the phone will admit to having gone to YouTube. I am a YouTube certified automotive technician. That's the way I refer to it all the time. It means I can fix anything as long as it's on YouTube. So I guess the question is, what does DIS look forward to? What does the dealer look forward to be able to service customers going forward if they're doing more and more of this business on their own? I know the answer. Do you know the answer?
Well, go ahead. I'll let you put your 2 cents in, obviously, please.
So I'm gonna say technology solves that problem, right? Because what happens is we need to find a way to be able to bridge to the customer. How do we bridge our communications to the customer? And it's not just communications on, this is what you bought, this is what you owe me. It's going to be, what kind of services can I provide to you? So I think you're starting to look at things like, and none of this is new technology, but we've talked about using electronic services or e-services, or in DIS's case, my portal, to be able to have people kind of become self-sufficient from an accounting perspective, or from a parts perspective, or from an opening work orders perspective. I think it'll go further than that going forward. And there's going to, the technology is there for visualization. And this is, what we're doing today is a perfect example. We actually have an opportunity to sit here and talk to each other face to face. And I can see when you roll your eyes. I can tell when you're napping. I can tell whether you're interested or engaged or otherwise. But how do I translate that going forward to my end user customer?
Well, and the two elements of what you're just talking about are what's fundamentally changed is the speed at which people want to interact and get their answers done, because their attention span is always lower. They're not going to wait for a dealership to call them back. Typically, they want to get something addressed now, and they want to control the timing of that interaction as well. So if they can't interact until it's 9 o'clock at night, dealerships are going to have to respond to figure out, well, is there somebody that's going to be able to respond to live chats at 9 o'clock at night, as an example?
So again, 5 years ago, a good friend of mine, Ron Slee, used to say, dealers are going to be 24/7. Dealers are going to be 24/7. No matter what we do, that's how it's going to work. The answer is, it may have taken 5 years, but I think the expectation now is coming closer to 24/7. I think they're looking for ways to be able to communicate, even if it's on a self-service basis. I think there's an opportunity there for dealers as well. Over the next 5 years, we're going to establish what the bar is for the service that you provide to the customers, and those customers who are wanting exceptional service above and beyond the bar are going to pay for it because they're prepared to pay for it. We're conditioning them already. So if you'd like our white glove service, if you'd like proprietary access to our experienced service techs, if you want to be able to have 24/7 parts availability and shipping before 5 o'clock in the morning, we can do all that on a premium basis. So I think that is a huge.
Well, and we're already conditioned that way with all of the streaming services to say, oh, you want us without commercials? Here, we pay an extra $4 a month, and you can stream without commercials.
Yep, and so everything that's happening outside of our market is also happening inside of our market. So that's why I always try to tell people that, hey, listen, and I would be the first one that said Uber is not going to affect us. Uber is never going to affect the heavy equipment industry. The fact of the matter is, it is now, and it's just being delivered in a different way by products like Heave. Is Heave going to be the most successful? I don't know. Is Heave likely to last?
The concept's out there now.
The concept is there, and Pandora's box has been opened.
Yep.
That don't tell me, computer.
Oh, that was a quick poll that just came up.
Okay, I was going to say I lost my screen entirely. Am I still there?
Neither one of us are, because we put a quick poll online, and I'm assuming that our moderator controlled that one.
There we go.
Hopefully some people responded to that.
But that so those are the those are the move forward challenges. Some of the ones that I see for the way things are going to look 5 years from now anyway. You brought up the attention span, and I don't mean to cut you off, but I'm telling you, we're 24 minutes into this. It used to be you and I could do an hour-long webinar, and if it ran to an hour and a half, it would be fine. The attention span has dropped so significantly now. Yep. And I say that, first of all, appreciating everybody who is, on the webinar. But I will tell you, my plan always is to wrap up in half an hour, because that seems to be about what people will listen to an hour if you stretch it. There's an awful lot, and knowing your customer going forward, they're going to be the same way, right? They don't want to be transferred. They don't want to be transferred to 5 different people to get an answer, to find out what's going to happen, or call me tomorrow, or leave a voicemail and I'll get back to you. Everything has this need for absolute immediacy. So I think from a dealer's perspective, if you want to be here in 2030, you got to figure out how to service the customer on an entirely different level than we have right now. And look around and see who you deal with. You and I talked about it earlier. I put in an LF3000, a really super common oil filter in Amazon. I don't really have a backhoe loader that needs it right now, but I thought, okay, I'll just put it in and see what happens. To find out that it can be delivered here, before 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So generally I get 3 hours lead time and they're dropping off the parts I need. I don't know that my local dealer can deliver it that fast. So now the dealer has to start thinking about, what do we do? You're not coming in to pick up parts. UPS doesn't work for us. Do I look at a local courier and have them do drop-offs?
And that's, you and I talked, that's the definition of saying, what does success look like in 5 years? And it's not going to be the same definition of successfully looking after the customer as it has been for the last 5 or 20 years. It's going to change. That's the real message here, right? And it's to get ahead of that change as best you can.
Absolutely.
And then we also brought up, I loved your comment from previous discussion. It's not about success, it's also about success, as in secession.
Yeah. So this is the other thing, and I really appreciate, and I really used to appreciate doing the 5-year planning sessions. You get everybody in the room and you go off site and you talk about how you're going to navigate. You can't do that anymore. I mean, the world just operates too quickly to be able to do that. You can plan for success. You can't plan for emergencies. You can't plan for situations. One of the challenges that you have right now is, even with a great succession plan, or a succession plan, excuse me, and who's going to run the dealership in the event that the dealer principal takes a left turn or has a health issue or something crops up. The business just changes too dramatically, and one of the things that we've seen lately on all sides of the business is investors from outside of the business coming in, and they have entirely different expectations. So all of a sudden, one day you're working for a small 3-store Kubota dealer in the Midwest, and the next part you're part of a 60-store publicly traded company, and the expectations of what you're supposed to deliver are changing pretty dramatically. Things aren't done on a handshake and a promise of a good customer anymore. You have certain benchmarks that you need to be able to fulfill for a private equity firm, for a venture capitalist, for somebody that's involved. Let me tell you, their expectations are serious.
Oh, absolutely. And we're seeing that in the software business as well. I mean, some of our competition is private equity owned, and that changes the dynamic, because obviously there's not the focus on the dealer and the customer anymore. It's a focus on the bottom line. Why? Because that's what private equity has to focus on.
Yeah, well, and I think I'm a great example of that, and I can give you a real easy one, because 10 years ago, when it was PFW and we used to do software for heavy equipment dealers, ag and construction. I thought that would exist as it was forever. Fast forward in 10 years, I think it's been sold 5 times. Through 5 different divisions, is now part of another multinational, brought in new CEOs ready to sell again. That changes the nature of the people that they serve too, right? Because all of a sudden we're not all serving the same master, we're not all rowing in the same direction. And I will tell you, to your credit, Lloyd, the thing that I always find interesting about software companies, and DIS falls in this, is understanding who your end user customer is. Because if you're not developing for who the absolute end user is, then none of it works. And to our audience, whom I'm going to assume are mostly equipment distributors, I'll tell you the same thing. If you're not doing something that benefits the farmer, the independent contractor, the landscaper, I'm just trying to hit all of the different business models. If you're not doing something, if you're putting an initiative together that doesn't benefit them in some way, shape, or form, either fiscally or emotionally, you need to rethink those strategies, or you don't have to worry about a plan for 2030, because those are the people that are going to continue to drive your business.
Yep, agreed. And we circle back to the same thing we talked about, which is if they're expecting faster service, more hours of service, different style of service, way of interacting, dealers have to respond to that. has to start that.
And they have to respond to it with the tools that they have available or tools that they can make available. And I really think that that's one of the things that I challenge everybody. Go back to your software providers and make sure that you tell them what you need in order to change. And know that they don't have a silver bullet. They don't have a magic answer. I really appreciate what DIS does across all of their business units. I'll go even further and say I appreciate what Constellation does across all of their business units, because over the last 3 weeks, I've had the opportunity to work with people internationally that I didn't, dealing with the same challenges and in the same markets that you are. So by being a larger multinational, so this is where being a privately or a publicly held company is not necessarily, a bad thing, because the Constellation is wanting to grow that software. They're wanting to grow their markets. So consequently, they're trying the synergies across all businesses to be able to find the best way they can to solve problems. And I think that's a different mentality than saying, hey, we're just going to sign you up for 5 years and take you off to part of our balance sheet and then decide with somebody whether we're worth more or not. I think there's even from a dealer's perspective, in order for your company to be worth something, you have to have customers that are going to be loyal to you. So if you're doing something, every single question should come back to how does it affect the end user? Yep. And I know you do it at DIS because I've been in meetings, and the answer is, oh, we have an initiative. We want to reface our portal, or we want to. I don't want to give away all your secrets. Some of the new products that you're working on. The question is, how does it affect the end user? And the end user isn't your customer; it's your customer's customer. So I think that's a how do I last in the long term?
Okay, well, and I know we're at what you and I were trying to limit things to 30 minutes. I think we do need to open it up to our audience. We've thrown out a whole bunch of concepts and ideas, and please ask any questions. Tell us if you think we're off base with anything we've talked about, or literally just give us any sort of feedback now. I will look to the chat to see if there's any questions at all that are coming in from people attending. And count on our organizer behind the scenes to pass anything along.
Is quite simple. If you can remember my name, my email is John, JOHN, @johnandersen.net. I am happy to discuss all things heavy equipment and distributor related. It's my passion. It's my place. It's what I 9% of my time. And just like that, it's just.
I was going to say, I'm not sure what the screen share came up because I
think Dan's bringing it up right now. So,
well, I mean, it
wasn't me either. So
anybody that is curious at all or wants to follow up with us, it's 1-800-426-8870 for DIS. And we certainly welcome any inquiries on anything we've talked about and any suggestions, as I say, about what we should be doing in future webinars. There should be a survey, I will trust, that will come up the minute we close things off. And hopefully Than is able, because we've also got weather hitting all over the place right now. So I'm not sure if that's impacting the ability for us sharing this. So with any luck, the technical issues aren't related, because John and Tan and I are literally thousands of miles apart. So with any luck, we will get the survey off to you the minute you stop.
Hi, I am Sylvie. How are you?
Oh, hello.
Hi, I'm Sylvie. How are you?
Oh, hi, Sylvie.
I have a few questions.
Okay.
Thank you. Do you have a moment? Do you still have time? Are we still good for that?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing what you've been sharing today. It's always great to be getting some different input and different perspectives. So I truly appreciate that. What I'm wondering about is, we've been talking about experience marketing. This is more what our customer are now looking for. And in order to do this, we really need to have a database that will allow us to to create that and segment at a deeper level our customer base. So is there any plan, because there is sales calls right now that it's existing, but it's truly limited for us to be able to work with that database. So is there a plan to be able to go at a deeper level into creating that database using AI or something like that with our quantum system?
There are discussions on that front, and actually we've got product design meetings coming up here very quickly. So yes, there's talk about all of things related to customer experience and how to enhance it. So yes, you're right on. That's one of the areas that we're looking at very much right now.
Yeah, because this is really a challenge. Right now, we're okay, we want to be using sales calls in terms of opportunities when we call the customer or extracting the database to be more accurate. This is a challenge for us right now. And on the other end, okay, do we invest in systems like Salesforce? Or that's kind of the thing, but it would be so much easier instead of having to then make those two systems talk to each other if we were able to have it in one place.
Sure, and there are different outside systems that do integrate today with all of our different software packages at DIS, if that's the right approach for any given dealership. So we always want to offer at least more than one way of addressing a problem, and that could be external partners or third parties that the dealership picks, and it could be additional products that we've developed in-house as well. Or one of the benefits of being part of Constellation is products that some of our sister companies have developed that will work across platforms, which again, we're doing that sort of discussion literally every month. So there could be something else that has worked in other markets for other dealer group companies that we may well bring to market for our customers as well. So all I can tell you on that side of it is stay tuned a little bit as we plan all of that here very quickly. And
thank you, much appreciate.
Sorry.
Well, there was my question, primary question was where do you stand with AI? Because also there's the database extracted from, let's say for a customer or even from data mine that we can extract, but then quickly doing the analysis. So which AI would allow us now. So, and it's going so fast. I've been attending seminar that are specifically to AI for the past 2 years, and what they were talking about 2 years ago and what they're talking about now, it's out of this world.
And I am not the expert, and John can correct me, but my guess is the two biggest ways AI is going to impact dealers is looking internal and looking to your customer interactions. And you hit the nail on the head with the analytics. I think you're going to get to the point where you will conceptualize what you want to ask, and you'll be asking an AI engine to go into your, as John put it, your gold mine of data and do that work for you to get to the core concept you're trying to get information on and do it faster than any of us can. To think of it as almost advanced analytics. And I think that's where AI is going to work at some point in the near future in the dealership is my crystal ball. And the other is going to be with fine tuning the customer interactions and saying, this is what it will predict. And the only real wrinkle, and John does it better than I do, the only thing you have to realize is AI is really pattern recognition, and it's not using the emotional intelligence side of it, which is where the dealership will have to understand the emotional connection with the customer and make sure that the EI side of it is as important as the AI. And sorry, John, I'm probably taking your exact words on that.
No, actually, it's fine, because I think AI has a real place in dealerships moving forward, because the biggest challenge is there are so many, there's so much data. And Sylvia, I think you're headed down the right path, and you're right. In order to be able to decide how you're going to take care of those customers, you have to have access to that customer base through analytics. You've got to be able to come up with some idea of what you're looking for, and then you've got to let AI do what it does best, which is sort through 5 million granules to come up and find you the patterns and where it makes sense. I I think the difference once you get there, and how do you differentiate yourself from everybody? I mean, because let's be honest. If you look at AI, even if it's even looking at things like large language models today, and people are saying, oh, well, I use it to write my reports, and I use it to do my marketing programs, and I use it to do this, that. It's dealing with pattern recognition. So clearly it's going to deliver similar results across industries and similar results across businesses. What you've got to be prepared for is finding out how to, since it's dealing with pattern recognition, how to destroy that pattern, how you can accelerate one step beyond. I agree with you. You need the tools in place. I will give you free advice while we're on this call, probably get myself in trouble and tell you Salesforce, for a lot of what people want to do in simple contacts to their customer and understanding who their customer base is, well, it's an awesome program. It's a lot of overkill for just trying to be able to maintain good customer relations, good customer marketing, and take care of things that way. But the secret with AI is going to be understand that it's basically advanced character recognition. It's gonna help you recognize patterns and answer questions in what appears to make Lloyd happy the most logical fashion. If you want to separate yourself from everybody else, you've got to look at not just what the AI says, but how do I break that pattern? I hope that helps.
But yeah, so please reach out to us either way, through an email or through a call. If there's any questions or comments at all, especially if you want us to do something different or you want us to do more of this in bite-sized increments, I get it, because of everybody's time crunches, then we certainly want to hear your input on that. Other than that, again, thank you everybody for attending, and I believe you will get a survey the minute we close this off.